Witness this historical moment. The greatest chess player in the world transformed into a furious beast after Gukesh steals victory from him. How did this happen? And what was the fatal mistake that even the Norwegian wizard missed? Do you think Carlsen truly lost his cool, or was Gukesh so brilliant that he forced this mistake? Drop your thoughts in the comment before we reveal the analysis. Gukesh start with e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, and bishop b5, the Rio Lopez. Carlsen respond with knight f6, the Berlin defense. Here, Gukesh choose the anti-Berlin with d3. But if he diving into the Berlin defense variation, there are two main moves. After castle, knight takes on e4. Here, there is rook e1 or d4. If you play rook e1, then knight d6, knight capture on e5. If you capture on b5, then you will lose your queen after knight takes c6. So, you must capture on e5. After rook takes on e5, bishop e7, the position become highly balanced. Both players have equal and same materials and mirrored pawn structures, often leading to a draw game. Therefore, after knight takes e4, there is the move d4. After knight d6, bishop capture on c6, d takes c6, and d takes e5. Knight f5, queen takes d8, king takes d8, and this is more combative option in Berlin that unbalance the position, both in terms of pawn structure and pieces. White's plan involving creating a passed pawn on king side, while on a queen side, white 3 pawn can effectively restrain black 4. Black advantage lies in the bishop pair. If white succeeds in trade one bishop while maintaining his superior pawn structure, he will likely win the game. At the same, if black manages his consolidated his pawn structure while preserving the bishop pair, he should win with correct play. After d3, bishop c4, c3 preparing d4, give the bishop square on c2, castle castle, and d6. There is a line that typically work well in Scotch opening. Bishop takes c6, pawn takes c6, and d4. E takes d4, c takes d4, and bishop b7. And here, the strong move is e5 in Scotch. D takes e5, d takes e5. If you think you will have advantage by isolating black pawns, this doesn't apply here for tactical reasons, starting with knight g4 strong move, which create pressure on f2 with bishop. If you trade the queens and play h3, then knight takes f2 will win the game. After rook takes, rook check, and king h2 and take the rook. And if you play here knight c3, then bishop a6 a strong move and black has a big advantage. Gukesh play h3, a6, bishop a4, h6, and rook e1 protecting e4 and preparing to push d4, b5, bishop c2, and bishop b6 to prevent d4 come with tempo. Knight b d2. After knight e7, he chose to play on king side. General, in Rio Lopez position, there are typically three main strategy. King side attack by controlling f4, f5 square. Second, central play with d4, or queen side pawn storm with a4, b4, and a5, or a takes b5. Now, here is the secret. To effectively choose one side to play, you must first close the other two options. Watch how Carlsen do it. a4, rook b8, and d4. Gukesh choose to play on center and queen side. How do we know this? The answer is from the move order. When Carlsen start moving his knight first, it signaled his initiate to dominate the king side faster than Gukesh could react. At the same, Gukesh move order revealed his focus on the queen side and center play. Knight g6, knight f1, c5. If d takes c5, bishop takes c5, and bishop g7 make a huge pressure on king side and e4 pawn with knight. So, after c5, knight g3, c takes d4, c takes d4, and b takes a4, b takes a4, and bishop b7 make pressure on e4 pawn. d5 to close the center, and this is what Carlsen wants. Because the center is closed and you have no play on queen side, so the king side attack will be effectively. After d5, Carlsen respond with a5, a strong move. If you delay e5 one move, king h8 as example, knight d2, and now play a5. Here, Gukesh will respond knight c4 with double attack on bishop and pawn, bishop c7, and bishop d2. If you play now bishop a6 to take the knight, then b3 will be a strong move. If you take the knight, b takes c4 and play c5 and take the pawn, and d pawn will be a passed pawn. So after d5, a5 now, the same idea doesn't work. If knight d2, then Carlsen will respond with bishop a6, and if you play now b3, Carlsen will play rook c8 and controlling c4 square. So after a5, bishop e3, white want to exchange the bishop who is defend on a5 pawn. Bishop c8, controlling f5 square, and b3. Bishop takes e3, rook takes a3, and the attack is start with knight f4. Gukesh play bishop c6, rook b4, putting pressure on e4 pawn with knight. This move overloads Gukesh rooks, forcing it to defend 2 pawns. Queen c2, g6 to prevent knight f5. Here there is a fantastic line starting with bishop takes h3, g takes h3, knight take on h3, and king g2. Knight check, king g1, and knight g4. Rook c3 and play g6 controlling f5 square, and play h5, h4 and start the attack. So after g6, the king move to h1 to prevent the knight sacrifice come with check. After securing the f5 square, Magnus put his bishop on a6. Bishop a6, the main idea is to make more pressure on e4 pawn by playing after queen a2, bishop d3, knight d2, h5. The key idea is to exchange the h pawn for white central e4 pawn, creating pressure on d4 pawn while exploiting the weak b3 pawns as a second target. Queen takes a5, queen takes a5, rook takes a5, and h4. Rook a4. Gukesh respond on 2 questions to defend that you can use in your game. First, can I remove the attacker? Second, can I distract with a counter threats? Here, if Carlsen take the rook, then b takes a4, and Gukesh have counterplay with a pawn. So, after rook a4, rook f b8, if rook takes b4, rook takes b4, and same pressure resisted on the e4 pawn. Rook a2, king g7, rook a7, rook d4 with double pressure on e4 and d4 pawns, knight f3, h takes g3, f takes g3, if knight h5, then knight takes on d5, e takes d5, and rook take on d3. So, Carlsen respond with knight takes h3. If you do the same idea doesn't work. Knight takes d4, e takes d4, rook takes d3, knight check, I will take the rook. So that Gukesh respond with g takes h3, bishop takes e4, king h2, rook d1, if knight g4, then rook h1 checkmate. So that Gukesh play g4, bishop takes d5, bishop takes d5, knight takes d5, rook e2, knight f4, rook c2, king f6 to prevent knight g5, h4, king e6, knight g5 check, king d5, rook check, king d4, rook check, king d3, and rook f2. Here, Carlsen play f6. This is a mistake. The correct move is to play f5. f5 to protect e4 pawn from knight. After f6, check, king e2, check, rook d2, rook takes d2, king takes d2, and knight e4 check. After knight e4 check, king e2, king g3 to protect the rook, and d5, knight capture on f6, and rook f8. Here, Gukesh respond with check, king e1, and knight d7. After knight d7, the correct move for Carlsen here is to play rook e8, supporting the pawn and start push the pawns and win the game. But after a great game, after a fantastic game, after a brilliant game from Carlsen, respond with a big blunder with knight e2 check. After knight e2 check, rook takes e2, king takes e2, and knight takes f8. Carlsen maybe think he will win with these two pawns and make a queen, but this knight have many options. d4, knight e6, d3, knight c5. Here, if you push the pawn d2, then Gukesh will play knight e4, threatening the pawn on d2. Then if you make a queen, then check, I will take your queen. So that Carlsen respond with king e3, knight a4, a great move, h5 by Gukesh, g takes h5, g takes h5, and king d2. Gukesh respond with knight b2. Then Carlsen play e3, check, king e2, and king f4. After king f4, if you push the pawn, I will take the pawn. If you push the pawn, I will take the pawn and win with this two pawns. After a great game by Carlsen, he lose by a strange way. After that blunder, Carlsen slammed the table in clear frustration. Even geniuses make mistakes, but what matters is how they recover. Watch how Carlsen regains his focus in the following moves. Do you think this outburst will shake Carlsen and cost him the tournament, or will the beast within him awaken? Share your opinion in the comments.